At Tires Plus, you're in the driver's seat. We know that when it comes to buying tires, you're in the driver's seat. We know that when it comes to buying tires, the options seem endless.
Why this is a good idea? And we now have new information, by the way. A new poll shows the majority of those polled want Pelosi out as House Speaker. Though Democrats' House majority was nearly wiped out in the last month's election, the party appears poised to retain Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi for a fourth two-year stint as Speaker next month. A new Political Morning Consult poll shows most Democrats think she should keep the gavel, but a majority of voters oppose Pelosi staying as Speaker. Only 31% of all voters think Pelosi should be elected as Speaker when the Congress begins, while 56% think she should not. But self-identified Democrats say the first woman House Speaker should stay on by a 20-point margin, 53 to 33. So, overall, she's down. She's underwater. 56% say no. Among Democrats, frankly, I don't really think that's an impressive number. Just 55% of Democrats think she should stay on? Excuse me, 53%. That's not exactly an overwhelming mandate. And like I said, all these people saying we don't have the numbers, what are you looking at? Again, she's only got a 4-seat majority. There's 7 current members strongly for Medicare for all. So what are you looking at? 7 is bigger than 4. These 7 up top have the power to make a demand, even if that demand isn't going to pass right away. The 4 coming in: Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, Marie Newman, Mondaire Jones, if there is a God, Nina Turner eventually. It only strengthens that position. So then the argument becomes, well, what's the point, Jordan? Yeah, you could have a, quote, performative vote, but it's not going to pass. Well, here's the point. You don't ultimately get the victory without public fights for many years before that victory.
David Pakman, Status Coup.
Listening to the questions and comments.
The first one is Status Coup. This is David Pakman.
DavidPakman.com/Discord. Speaking of Ohio, let's go to Chris in Cincinnati. Chris, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you so much, David. So I just want to start a little bit with a point in which we can agree on, because I do kind of want to pressure you a little bit onto your thoughts on the AOC kind of controversy. So would you say that if your goal is progressive policy and a non-corrupt government, that Pelosi probably wouldn't be a good Speaker of the House?
You're saying in a vacuum? I don't think about it that way. I don't think Pelosi. I'm not excited by Nancy Pelosi because I just don't find her to be nearly progressive enough. So my preference would be for a more progressive Speaker of the House. Absent any other political realities in a vacuum, I'd rather someone more progressive than Nancy Pelosi.
Right. I think we can agree on that. So I think politics 101, right? If you don't agree with a specific vote, right, you don't agree with voting for Nancy Pelosi for a progressive policy, then you of course want to leverage your vote, right? You want to get something out of voting for Pelosi, whether that be a more progressive Speaker of the House, which
victory. And part of those public fights are, you ready? Performative, but not just for and giggle.
Need to send money internationally? Download the Western Union app. Available 24/7.
I'm not going to keep this video long. I was greatly annoyed this morning when I came across a tweet by one Cenk Uygur. And I was annoyed, and I was going to do an end-of-the-year ceremony where I had all of these different categories and everything else. And I think I'm going to jump the gun on this and start now with one sucker of the 2020. The biggest sucker of 2020. And that is
Cenk Uygur's fans
of the Young Turks. How do I come to that conclusion? I come to that conclusion for several reasons. One, Russiagate. The full-throated belief in a conspiracy theory that he basically swallowed and put out to his supporters, despite the fact that as time went on, one plank after another went away, and he is still believing that Vladimir Putin is whispering things in Donald Trump's ear, even up to this day. Suffer. The belief that Elizabeth Warren was somehow an asset to the left, as opposed to what she was back in 2016, which was basically a snake. She put a knife in Sanders back in 2016. It was infinitely foreseeable of what she was going to do now. She had communication with Hillary Clinton behind the scenes. She had communication going with Clinton going all the way back to 2013. Bill Clinton said, don't let Sanders folk take the party. And yet his wife, who ran against Sanders, who hates his guts, is in communication with Warren. The Young Turks, you would think, would know this, and yet pushes Warren. Yes, they might push Sanders, but they also push...
Which is very unlikely. Or maybe getting some political concessions out of Speaker Pelosi, correct?
Those would certainly be things that one could seek, yes.
Right. So what AOC came out and said what she would be trying to leverage for her vote, the first thing she said was a $15 minimum wage, which is incongruent with any sort of leverage, because Pelosi and Biden already said they're fighting for that. So it doesn't really make sense, and at best, it's just kind of misleading and gaslighting.
Okay, but hold on a second. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, sure.
When you say what AOC would want in exchange for her vote for Nancy would be a $15 minimum wage. The language is a little bit confusing, because how would AOC voting for Nancy Pelosi get a $15 minimum wage? Do you mean a vote on a $15 minimum wage, or what specifically?
Right, that's a great question. So what AOC tweeted, what she said in response to how she's leveraging her vote for Nancy Pelosi, it'd be, if I vote for Nancy Pelosi, I have backdoor kind of conversations with Nancy Pelosi and make an agreement with her that I will support her for a $15 minimum wage if I support Nancy Pelosi.
Hold on a second. No, I think you just said something totally. I will support her for a $15 minimum wage if I think maybe you just misspoke. Can you say that again? AOC said what exactly?
Okay, so you can read the tweet that she said, but she's saying she's leveraging her vote for Speaker Pelosi in order to get a $15 minimum wage. That was directly her tweet. She did it in response to Justin Jackson on Twitter.
Okay, I'm just saying I don't fully understand what it means that she wants to getting a $15 minimum wage is something that would have to pass the House, Senate, and be signed into law by the President. So I'm trying to understand. I'm not saying you're giving me wrong information. I don't understand what it means that she's leveraging her vote for a $15 minimum wage, because I just don't see how Nancy Pelosi can make that happen. Is she talking about a vote on a $15 minimum wage?
That's a great question. I think these kinds of, the exact question that you're bringing up is kind of proof that what AOC is saying in response to leveraging her vote is kind of incongruent with not only the way that this would work properly, but also
well, that may be. I guess it depends on what AOC meant. I'm just not totally, since I haven't seen the tweet.
Come on, caller.
It's
for
possible
the speaker.
To be clear what AOC meant in the
tweet. Hold her vote back for the Speaker House. Let the Speaker of the House vote. Come on.
Stick on that then. But I think the point is still there. I just find it interesting that there's a whole debacle on AOC's response to Justin Jackson in part of this controversy, and that was really part of it. And
that's part of what, though? I'm trying to say, what is the main point? What is the main point?
It was part of the disagreement about forcing the vote. Part of that disagreement saying AOC wasn't left enough, right? I mean, I'm not going to say that.
The disagreement
intentions for AOC, right?
Listen, I don't know that. I want to have this conversation. I just am really struggling to know what you're talking about. When you say that was part of the disagreement, what was part of which disagreement between which parties?
So there was a disagreement between people on the left, like Jimmy Dore, who's Okay. There was a disagreement between Justin Jackson and Breonna Joy Gray and Secular Talk with AOC's policy-making decisions in how she's leveraging her vote for Speaker Pelosi.
Okay.
And this disagreement was on Twitter, and it came in AOC's response to Justin Jackson on Twitter. And that's what really sparked the controversy of Force the Vote. On top of Jimmy Dore's crazy outward rants about how AOC is corrupt, which I don't support, right?
Okay.
So AOC said in response to Justin Jackson saying on Twitter that if you don't leverage your vote for Medicare for All, which is like hashtag Force the Vote, then you are showing who you truly are, kind of saying like it's a litmus test. And AOC responded to Justin Jackson saying we are leveraging our vote and we're doing it for a $15 minimum wage.
Okay, who is Justin Jackson?
Sure, he's an NFL football player, but on Twitter he's a very active leftist who frequently goes on like Katie Halper's show and Breonna Joy Gray's Bad Faith podcast.
Okay, I don't know who. So I'm going to try to bring this back. Maybe this is just not the right venue. I don't know who Katie Halper is. I know Breonna Joy Gray was Bernie's former person. We're like 10 layers deep in telephone. Was there a specific question for me on policy?
Sure. Yes. Okay. On policy, I would hope that you could just a little expand on what you think would be the best way to leverage your vote for Speaker Pelosi. Like maybe we could talk about that, or you could expand on if we're going to vote for Nancy Pelosi, progressives I mean, and you're going to vote for someone that we don't clearly agree with. We already said that. What is the best way we should leverage our vote for Speaker Pelosi?
Okay, I have a segment coming up about this, and I'm going to lay out in detail exactly the things that I think would be more reasonable. But if we're going to stay even in this paradigm, if I were AOC, and this doesn't mean this is the right thing or the wrong thing, I would be more interested in pushing for something that if I'm going to hold my vote hostage, I don't want to do it for a naughty nice list on Medicare for All. I would rather do it on standing firm on $1,200 or $2,000 for people that need it, just as one example. Like I can come up with all sorts of other examples, but I think there's actually a bigger picture question here about the types of things that members of Congress can try to get from the Speaker that are beyond symbolic votes to do a naughty and nice list, which includes things related to committeeships, and it's a long list, and I'm going to have that clip very soon.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry if it was unclear, but I love your show.
Thank you.
And as a leading remark, Breonna Joy Gray had a great article on like what this kind of effect would have, and also David Sirota on how to leverage your vote properly. But thank you so much, David.
All right, very good. Pleasure. Hopefully we were able to make some sense out of that eventually. I mean, I think we got to something interesting, ultimately.
Maybe, I think, hopefully.
We all know the havoc climate change has wrought on our lives. That's why America's architects are taking action
she was some kind
to
of
ensure
equivalent
every
factor
building emits
in
no carbon dioxide.
And what happened?
Join
Who was
us.
right?
It means the world
Warren
will fall.
goes bankrupt, belly up. Warren, after
was it from Michigan? I can't remember her name now. But
the CIA one.
Right, exactly. She claimed that she wasn't going to support Pelosi, but who knows? Maybe she meant for the leader as opposed to for Speaker of the House. But the idea is to get the some progressives, all you need is about 15, to say, we want a vote on Medicare for All in the House. Now, even if the Medicare for All was to pass in the House, it doesn't mean anything in terms of it actually getting into effect. Now, but there is value in getting the caucus on the record, both from like if the Democratic caucus votes for it, it sets a marker for when they control both houses.
And there have been votes in the past, right? on Medicare for all in the House, and you've gotten people on the record. Like, prime example for me when I was debating these Tulsi Gabbard supporters was that she wasn't voting for Medicare for all, and then she signed on to it later on.